Morning, everyone. Welcome to the February 20th, 2025 Zoning Board of Adjustment meeting. If any member of the audience wishes to speak to an item on the agenda, there are speaker request forms on the table to the left side of the room. Please fill out the request with the agenda number of the item you wish to speak to and hand it to the secretary. At this time, we would also like to ask that if any member of the audience has a cell phone or other electronic device, that you either turn it off or turn the ringer to silent. If you need to take a call, please step out to the hallway so the meeting is not disrupted. Public hearing on item number 1, the approval of the February 6, 2025 Zoning Board of Adjustment meeting minutes is hereby opened.
Motion to approve.
All right, Vince made the motion to approve those minutes, and Mike seconded that motion. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 2.
Good morning, Chair, Planning Commission, Cassie Hayes, current planner. Item number 2 before you is a variance request VA002. This is a request to allow a detached garage with a maximum height of 20 feet in lieu of 15 feet. This is on property located at 305 North 39th Street. Currently zoned low density residential 1. Future land use of this property is low density neighborhood. And this property does take access off of North 39th Street, which is classified as a local street. What they are proposing to do here, this property currently contains a building that was formerly used as a Montessori school. What they are proposing to do is remove that existing structure, replace it with a new single-family dwelling, and with an attached garage, and also a 70 by 40 detached garage on the north side of the property. That detached garage measuring about 2,800 square feet, they are proposing for that garage to be 20 feet in height. The reason for the variance is that is considered an accessory structure, and by code, accessory structures in the low density residential 1 district can have a maximum height of 15 feet. They are proposing 20 feet in order to allow for 2 14-foot tall garage doors. The purpose of this detached garage is for personal storage of vehicles, but also a camper, some UTVs, ATVs, so some taller vehicles. That's why they are proposing the taller garage doors and the taller height. With this, they are also requesting a conditional use permit for an oversized garage, which you will hear later in this meeting as well. I do want to point out that there is a steep hill that crosses right through the center of this property, kind of goes all through this area here. So that steep hill does limit the buildable area on this lot to the 2 areas that you see noted on the screen, that southeast corner where the house will be and that northern corner where the detached garage will be. That steep hill does also provide a pretty good screening buffer for that detached garage from the view of the neighboring single-family dwellings to the west and the south of this property. The properties that are to the north and east of this property, as you can see on the zoning map here, those are zone general commercial district, where the maximum height allowed in that zoning district is 4 stories or 45 feet in height. So those properties will have the most prominent view of this detached garage. They are currently developed with a Game Fish and Parks building directly to the north. There's a motel to the east, and there's also a bowling alley back there as well. So this does seem to fit with the character of what will have the most prominent view of this detached garage. So when we are looking at variance requests, we are looking at those different criteria. So with that steep hill that traverses through the middle of this property and also the abutting general commercial district on the north and the east, it does appear that the topography and the adjacency to that general commercial district does create special circumstances that would support approval of this variance request. I do also want to point out that detached garages like this that are accessory to single-family dwellings are a permitted use in the LDR1 district, so this does not grant a land use that's otherwise not allowed in the district. Along with that steep hill providing some screening, there are also several mature trees in the area. I'll go back to the aerial picture here. As you can see down here on the south side, kind of extending all along here, there's quite a few mature trees that also provide some natural buffering and some screening. One thing that we did look at with this variance request is if this is the minimum adjustment necessary or to allow for reasonable use of the land. One thing that we did bounce around the idea of is that they could lower the pitch of the roof to still have those 14-foot tall garages, but potentially still meet that 15-foot height requirement. We did also throw around the idea that the main building in the LDR1 district can have a maximum height up to 2.5 stories or 35 feet. So we did also bounce around the idea of potentially them reconfiguring the garage that's going to be attached to the single-family dwelling and having that have the taller height with the 14-foot tall garage doors, and then have the detached garage be a smaller garage that would meet that 15-foot maximum height requirement. That is something that we kicked around a little bit, but ultimately what they're proposing does seem to fit the surrounding neighborhood. It does not seem to be something that would be detrimental to the character of the neighborhood. So staff is ultimately recommending approval of this variance request. I'll show you some pictures here that give you a little bit better idea. So here is the elevations. You can see those two 14-foot tall garage doors. Those will face to the east, so facing the hotel property. Here's the Montessori school that will be demolished, and this is where the new single-family dwelling will be constructed. You can see that hill kind of off in the background over here. There's a little bit better picture of that hill and the grade of it. This is looking back toward the north of the property, so off over here, this is the hotel property. Back here, you can see the Game Fish and Parks property just at the top of the ridge there. This is where the proposed detached garage will be constructed. You can see this is the Game Fish and Parks building back here. Here's this steep hill that will kind of buffer the view of that. This is looking at where the garage will be constructed from the hotel property. So you can see that hill is going to provide quite a bit of screening along with those large trees that are on there as well. And again, just a little bit closer view of where the garage will be located. Game Fish and Parks back here again. So ultimately, staff is recommending approval based on the criteria that that steep hill limits the buildable area of the lot. The abutting properties to the north and east are zoned general commercial district, so those create special circumstances that warrant approval of the variance. That detached garage will be recessed behind a steep hill, which will provide for screening, so it does not appear to be injurious to the neighborhood or detrimental to the neighborhood character. It is appropriate in relation to the surrounding area of where the detached garage will be located, since it is abutting those general commercial districts that allow for those larger heights. And then a detached garage is an allowed use in the LDR1 district. I'll stand for any questions, and the applicant is in the audience as well.
Mr. Chair,
Thank you. Vicki?
just for clarification, the item before you right now is just the variance on the height for the detached garage. Later on, when you get to the Planning Commission portion of this meeting today, you will review a conditional use permit for the oversized garage due to the accumulative square footage of the two detached and attached garage structures. So, Cassie did reach out originally to the applicants. They were originally proposing, I think it was a 24. And we asked them, what is just the minimum that you would need? And they came back with 20 feet. So it has already been reduced from 24 feet in height to 20 feet. One of the things that we've looked at internally is whether or not we need to address the allowable heights for these accessory structures. More and more people are purchasing recreational vehicles and campers, and it's a big expenditure, it's a big investment, and they want to store them in a garage. If it is a detached garage, they can't meet that 15-foot height and encompass some of these larger campers. And so that's something we're going to have to do. Noting that they did bring it down to 20 feet, that it is for a camper storage, we did believe that the request before you was a minimum adjustment, and based on the terrain, it had limited adverse impact on the neighborhood.
Thanks, Vicki. Yeah, I just wanted to chime in. Before the Montessori school, which was the previous use on this property, moved in, I looked at, with my wife purchasing this property, walked all around it. It's the definition of a unique property in Rapid City. This is, any action on this item does not affect any other properties. That hill is considerable. The vegetation is very grown in. It's a huge parcel in the middle of a developed area. Anything else from the commission?
No, I'll make a motion to approve.
All right. Vince made the motion to approve the variance to allow a maximum height of 20 feet and move 15 feet. Vicky?
Yes, if we could just have them cite the criteria that the terrain creates a special circumstance, and this is the minimum adjustment.
Motion to approve because the terrain, I'm sorry.
The terrain creates a special circumstance, and it's the minimum adjustment.
Yes.
Mike, does that work for you as the second?
That works.
All right.
Thank you. Thanks.
Mike, comments on the motion? Let me turn you on, though.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just think it's important to note that this is not setting a precedence because of the circumstance of this land. It's a unique property, as you stated, Eric, and so I think it's should be noted that that's also part of this.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. I appreciate that. Anything else on the motion to approve? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. That's our last zoning board of adjustment item. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion
All right.
to adjourn.
Haven made the motion. Karen seconded that motion. All those in favor of adjournment, please say aye. Aye. We'll now commence the Rapid City Planning Commission meeting for February 20th, 2025. Again, if anybody wishes to speak to a Planning Commission item, just grab a speaker request form and hand it to the staff seated over there. And if you still haven't silenced your cell phone or electronic devices, please do so now. Items 1 through 4 have been placed on the consent calendars today and may be approved as a group. Action will be taken on all consent items in accordance with staff's recommendation by a single vote. Any item may be removed from the consent calendar by any planning commissioner, staff member, or audience member for separate consideration at this time. The findings of this planning commission are recommendations to the city council. The city council will make the final decision. Are there any items 1 through 4 that staff would like removed for separate consideration? Any items 1 through 4 that any planning commissioner would like removed for separate consideration? And are there any items 1 through 4 that any audience member would like removed for separate consideration? Chair would then entertain a motion to approve items 1 through 4 in accordance with the staff's recommendation.
Second.
All right, Karen made the motion to approve those items, and Vince seconded that motion. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 5.
All right, item number 5 before you is conditional use permit 25 UR 002. Let's go back to North 39th Street. This is the request to allow that detached garage as an oversized garage. So going back to what we had discussed with the variance request, that new single-family dwelling that's going to be constructed on the property is going to have a gross square footage of about 2,270 square feet. That does include a 529 square foot attached 2-stall garage. And then that proposed detached garage is going to be 2,800 square feet. By code, the cumulative size of anything on a property that's used for parking, storage, or an accessory use cannot exceed 1,500 cumulative square feet or the footprint of the dwelling unit. So the footprint of that new single-family dwelling will be approximately 1,135 square feet, and that detached garage being 2,800 square feet in size, that will exceed not only the footprint of the dwelling, but it also exceeds that 1,500 square foot cumulative maximum. So that's why they also had to bring forward this request for an oversized garage. So I'll show you, that is the layout of the detached garage that you were looking at. This is also the elevations of the detached garage that we saw before. Now bringing you, this is the new single-family dwelling that will be constructed on the property. You can see it's going to be a 2-story dwelling with that attached garage right down in here. Here's elevations of what that new single-family dwelling is going to look like. So the criteria that we look at for oversized garages, in terms of it being designed to meet the construction and the color siding, really maintain the character of the single-family dwelling as well. The applicant has submitted these elevation drawings and also a statement of intent that indicates that the detached garage will match the construction and siding color and residential nature of this new single-family dwelling that will be constructed. Again, that detached garage that they're going to be using as an oversized garage, will be used for personal storage of vehicles, RVs, UTVs, ATVs, things like that. And it's not intended to be used for commercial purposes or as a second residence on the property. We did discuss in depth that that steep hill does provide natural screening for that detached garage. So that is also one of the criteria that we look at with an oversized garage as well. That detached garage does comply with all of the other land area regulations in the low-density residential district. So it does meet the setback requirements, the lot coverage requirements, and those other area regulations that we look at, except for that height, which you guys just approved for it to be 20 feet. So it does meet all of those requirements. So with that, since that proposed detached garage is designed to match the residential character and the building material of the single-family dwelling, and the location is recessed behind that steep hill, which reduce the street view impacts and provide screening to the adjacent single-family dwellings, staff does recommend approval of the request to allow an oversized garage with the stipulations noted in the staff report. I'll stand for questions.
Thank you. Any questions on this part of it? Or this item, I should say.
No, I'll make a motion to approve in accordance with the stipulations provided.
All right. Vince made that motion. Is there a second to it? Second. All right, Brooke seconded that motion. Any discussion on the motion to approve? All right, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. And that's the end of our regular agenda today. Anything to add from staff?
Stay warm, and
Yeah.
hopefully we can all just make it till this weekend. They're still promising 60 degrees, so I'm holding them to it.
That's right. Haven?
This morning we had an oversize and a overheight application, and I remember it seemed like some months ago, Vicki, you mentioned that you were working on something to revise the ordinance on these detached garages. What's the status of that?
So we did a full history on how many conditional use permits that we've granted for oversized garages. And we had a run of them there for a while. But overall, the 1,500 square foot seems to still be what Rapid City needs. Even if we were to bump it up to 2,000, based on the fact that a lot of developers are proposing smaller lots instead of larger lots, it can really change the character of a neighborhood. So, and you've noticed that the applications for oversized garages have, again, as they do, it ebb and flows, they've fallen way off. So for now, we're going to keep with the ordinance as is and bring these to you for consideration. There are times when we don't support them, when it's front-facing and they create that snout home and it doesn't fit with the character of the neighborhood. These are ones that you folks have to take a hard look at, and in some instances, you don't support those. So we want to continue to have the neighborhood voice when it's above and beyond what the established character is for an established neighborhood.
All right, I have one for the commission today. Mike Dugan emailed me yesterday about setting up the TIF education for the planning commission. And his question was, I guess the council did it in small groups versus a single meeting of the entire council. And he wondered if we wanted to do small groups, or what I would call our typical is one meeting for all of us, and everybody who can shows up. And I'm just curious what the commission thinks, because I didn't know how to answer.
So, Mr. Chair,
Vicky?
in the past, we've brought in our TIF planner and have them make a presentation at the end of a planning commission meeting. But we're still on camera, you're still sitting up at the dais, that still creates a level of separation. What we've found, and it's been very successful with the council, is to do what we call a working session. We sit down, we get around a table, it's casual in the way it's presented, and people can stop and ask questions as they're going, so that we can ensure that everyone truly understands the nuances of what is a TIF, what does it do, why are we doing them, what's the impact on the state as a whole when we do these. And this is things that you folks need to know, because we have dissolved the TIF committee. You will be the lead on reviewing whether or not all TIFs are appropriate. And so we want to make sure that you fully understand the actions that you're taking and the authority that you've been granted.
I appreciate the idea of the informal discussion, and that I'm just going to chime in with my opinion. I like having the entire commission there, just so I hear everybody's comments, not just the two people or however it's divided that I'd be with. But I've got lights up, so Karen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think there's a benefit to having everybody there, so everybody can hear the same things. And sometimes I think the planning commission hears something, maybe the council hears alternative things, and that makes it difficult, I think, for us if we approve something or don't approve something, and then the council changes their mind and says otherwise. But there's also something to be said about small groups, because I think if you're in a small group, you tend to ask more questions. And I don't know if the commission feels more comfortable, just doing us as compared to having another dozen people sitting around a big table, So I'm not sure. For me, it doesn't make any difference either way, I don't think. But I am concerned about getting rid of the TIF committee, but the TIF committee as it is today I don't think serves the right purpose. I don't think they have it together to know what's going on either. So, I think if we had that continuing, they'd have to be part of the discussion, I think. So those are just my comments, and I really don't care. I think it's a lot up to the planning commission how they feel about large or small groups, I think.
Okay. Mike?
Thank you. I think as a group, I agree that if we have everybody there, they get the same message. But I think there's also the possibility, if we have other questions, we can still go one-on-one with people within, correct, Vicki?
Absolutely. What we could do is start out where we invite all of you. Some of you won't be able to make it. We might do a second gathering for that group that can't make it. Maybe some from the first want to come back because they want reinforcement, or they left and realized, hey, now that I've gone, I still don't understand this part of it. But let's start there, I think. Invite all of you to a working session, and then if need be, we can set up one-on-ones, or we can have a second meeting to capture those that can't attend.
I think that'd be a great idea. For one, I think it's important, especially without the TIF committee not being there anymore, that we all understand what it is that we're voting on. I think it's a great idea, and I think we should set that up as soon as possible. Thank you.
When we have some changes coming down the pipe too, right, that are going in front of council, or have already? First reading, right?
They did.
Okay.
And it's things that we've wanted to do for some time. As an example, it really encourages infill development. And there's some financial benefit when a developer will pick that harder property to develop instead of always going and getting the cheapest land on the outskirts of the city, annexing it in, and then commenting, hey, we don't have city water and sewer, let's do a TIF. So hopefully we can slow down some of the sprawl that we've been experiencing.
Last question, for the whole commission, even if it's a working session, we need to advertise like a public meeting, or is that not apply to us? Is that just council?
Kinsley, I believe they do they not?
As long as
So-
that's not an issue, I don't see an issue.
You know, we've had working sessions with council on some very sensitive topics, and we have to advertise those too, but it's surprising how it's primarily just council and staff. It's rare that someone from the public will attend.
I don't mind if they do, but
No, absolutely not.
as long as we do it legally, that's all I
Correct.
care about.
Yep.
Okay. Anything else from the commission on that?
No, I'm comfortable with large, small, medium groups. Yeah, bring it on.
All right. Anything else? Motion to adjourn, maybe? Yes. Okay. Karen made the motion, Brooke seconded that. All those in favor of adjournment, please say aye.
Aye.